Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, I've had some requests just about the way I go about tuning things. Um, and so I figured since I'm right in the middle of doing the fine tuning with the Mapex, that I might as well turn it into a video and just kind of show you my process. So, I'm pretty meticulous about it. I use multiple methods kind of at the same time. But I'll just go through the standard, how, we typically put on our new heads and seat them and all that. Now, I've already put these heads on and seated them, but I just redid the 10 completely because the 10 was so far off. Just because I just used the drum dial to get the tension even, but I didn't go through and use my ear and tap tune and do that kind of thing. So what I'm going to show you here is just I'm getting this to finger tight, and I use one of the Tama high torque ones because the top of the key is basically allows you to do a finger tight, but without having to reach down or like grind your fingers against the lugs. So what I do is I use these keys just because they have some weight to them. Plus, they're very easy to turn for things that require higher tension, like snares, because it's a high torque. But point being that I just put it on there, and then I use the top, and I just spin until it won't go any further. I'm not cranking and spinning. I'm just using it till I'm getting pressure and feedback, so that I'm not spinning it any further than what the top will allow. So that just gets me to my finger tight status, and after I've done that around there, then obviously I'm putting it on, and usually what I like to do is use my stool as a base of operations, just because I know I complain about my back so often, but it really is. It really affects me a lot. And oh, I just forgot I have an ice pack back there too. Let me take that off. But I just I have to save my back in any way possible, just because of lifting and reconfiguring and all that. But I mean, I don't mean to gross people out, but I'm fused all the way through here with this scar, and then I have a battery and computer implant in here. And so my spine is like one big stiff pole, and I don't have discs in those areas. I had laminectomies done, and then they drill screws and rods in there, and they shave bone off of your hip, live bone, and then they lay it across the vertebra, and it all grows into one mass to fix the fracture that I had, because I had a 75% slit between my discs, and almost severed my spinal cord, and by the grace of God, I wasn't paralyzed. So anyway, back to my point of that's why it takes me longer sometimes, plus I'm really meticulous about it. But just to save my back and be able to kind of stand up and not have to bend over a lot, and that a good little trick is just putting it on your stool, because that way you can spin it around, get easy access to the lugs, and not have to bend over each time. Okay? So, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll even put like my drum pad down here, because you can see this is a saddle seat and it has some ridges in it. So a flat top will work great, but sometimes I'll just put like a board or my practice pad underneath it, so that I have a perfectly flat surface to work with. Okay, but anyway, so at this point I'm at finger tight. This is a UV1, so obviously I'm going to push down and put pressure on. I'm going to look for where the wrinkles are. I'm going to tighten just enough to get rid of those wrinkles and those spots. And you don't want to push down super hard, because then you'll get more wrinkles appearing than what you really need to get rid of. If you push really hard, you'll just keep seeing more wrinkles even after you've gotten rid of the ones that with pushing down lightly. So you don't want to push down too hard. Another trick I learned from Rob Brown is if you have those, lifting weights, like a 5-pound weight, like a kettlebell, you can just put that in the middle too, and that will keep constant pressure down, and then you don't have to push down while doing it. The weight will just keep the weight on there. But he recommends just using he said even his wife's, I think it was like an 8-pound, dumbbell kind of thing that she uses to work out with. So, 8 or 10 pounds worth of pressure is not a whole lot. So my point being, you don't need to crank down. There are a lot of schools of thought, like Simon Phillips, he stands on top of it, like his bass drum one, he stands and jumps on top of those. Because some of them, you do need to stretch a lot to seat them. But since I've already seated these yesterday, and I'm doing this just to retune the kit, I'm not needing to nearly stretch and seat like I did before. So back to that, where I've got now almost all the wrinkles out. There's a little bit here. And one good trick too is that if you see wrinkles appear, on one side, generally you're going to see them appear on the other side as well. So if you tighten one side, then naturally you're going to have less wrinkles on the other side because you already put more tension on one side. So if you only crank one side for the wrinkles, then you're going to have to deal with a little bit more wrinkles. But if you put kind of even tension as you go through it, then you'll have less wrinkles to deal with. Okay? So also I go by and I feel with my fingers on each lug, and then you can feel if those ridges are there or if you have kind of more of a flat plane. So at this point I have more of a flat plane, and so this is just just past wrinkle with everything else the finger tight. Then what I like to do is just see what it sounds like that. And see, that's what I love about these Mapexes, is that just past finger tight, you've got your fundamental. So, and that has a lot to do with me already tuning the Rezo head as well. But what I did was I put Evans G1 clears. I like using single ply clears on the bottom. Usually I'll use a 2-ply coated on top just for longevity, and also it gives you kind of a quicker, deeper sound, because even if you tune to the same tension, a single ply head is always going to sound higher than a double ply head, just even if it's at the exact same tension and note, because it's a double ply versus a single ply, and also coated versus clear. Okay, so what I like to do is I tune my Rezos up pretty high, because even if you don't want to choke them, you want to leave them just enough where no matter what you put your batter head at, that this will still create a good fundamental, because it's actually what you're getting the drum in tune with itself has a lot to do with the batter head. I know a lot of people say, I tune the batter head just for feel and the Rezo for the tone of it, but in all honesty, it's both heads working together that create that tone and that fundamental. So what I like to do is I use my drum dial, and I'll go around, and after I get rid of the wrinkles, then I'll find whichever ones are the low or high spots, and then I'll lower or raise those to make it even around. So what I've done with this is, I'll bring it closer so you can see, is that, so at basically 9 o'clock on this dial, I accidentally dropped this dial. If you ever get these, do not drop them. They're heavy, and they will go out of calibration. You can recalibrate them, but as you see on mine, the clock face actually rotated. So it is calibrated where the needle is pointing true north at 0, but the clock face has rotated to now where 0 is at like 5 o'clock position. I mean 5 after position. So, but I'm just used to, okay, when the dial goes, to this point, basically 9 o'clock, that's 75 psi. Okay, so what they recommend is something between 70 and 75 for your racks. And with the Rezo, I follow that just because the Rezo no matter, like I said, you know, you don't want to choke it. You don't want to put it at like 80 to where this isn't going to flex and resonate at all. But what I did was I went around, I checked every lug. You can see here that where I put the lug, every single lug is reading at that 75 position. And then you put it in the middle, and then you should have the same reading in the middle when you put the dial in the middle as when you go around for each lug, okay? So, and then after I do that, and I know that I have equal tension, then I go through the fine-tuning process with using my ear and tap tuning. So, you know, just, and then also using harmonics in addition to tap tuning, you know, by holding it and just a good thing to do is, like, you know, you can either put a piece of moon gel or something on there, but I usually just hold my thumb there and then hit each one. So you can hear that each one is tuned to itself, and then when you hit the middle, that, you know, the sound of what each lug will be. Okay? Now another thing is when you push down, obviously you're going to lower the pitch of what you've already tuned, even though the tension is still the same. So if you want like kind of a deeper, fatter sound, that's always a good thing. Just put it on the ground, you know, stretch it out, even though you've already tuned it and the wrinkles are gone, the tension's even. But that will help to just give you kind of more of a deeper, flubbier sound, if you like that kind of sound. But you can accomplish that by just tuning the top, the batter head, to, you know, very loose tension where the reso is tuned higher. So, and that also helps with giving you that pitch bend, which I like. So, you know, having that boom, 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 so that way your reso head will always give you that, you know, same fundamental and note. And yeah, it's just a little growly, but that's because this is completely just finger tight right now. So once I get the drum in tune with itself, you'll hear that it'll all match. And yeah, I'm still working on this drum, and that's why I started the videos, because I'm going through now and doing, I just did the 10, so now I'm doing the 12. So I figured, like I said, I'd make a video about it. And then what I do, same thing, like I got rid of the wrinkles on there. Then what I'll do is I'll use the dial to just go around and see, okay, which ones are higher, which ones are lower, are they all about the same? Okay, so then I can see, you know, this one is much lower than the rest by a good like 5 psi or so. So that's another thing, is that it will naturally tell you like where your wrinkles are at without you having to stretch them out and undo the wrinkles. You can just go to finger tight and immediately use the dial, because the dial will tell you which lugs have the looseness and the wrinkles. Okay? So these things are really invaluable. They make tuning a lot quicker. And then that way you can just kind of go through, okay, I'm going to turn this one up. And I usually go to like 65 to 70, depending on the drum and what tuning I'm going for. But like I said, the bottom is at like 74, 75. And you can either put them both together, where the top is at 74, 75, and the bottom is at 74, 75. Or if you want just like a deeper, you know, kind of rock sound. And I'll give you an example with what I did with the 10. And yeah, it's still a little bit high, but I'm just gonna go with where the drums naturally like to be. And I've done a lot of testing with this 10 to see where it likes to be the best, and that's where it likes to be. Okay, so I'm probably gonna lower the 10 some too, but I need to get everything in intervals before I do the fine tuning. But the great thing is that once you get the rezos to where they need to be, then you can just leave your kit set up and just fine tune with like one lug at a time, loosen a little bit here or there, but your rezos will stay the same and you don't have to reach under and do it, and the rezos will give you whatever note or fundamental you're looking for based upon how it's interacting with your batter head. Okay? So, like I said, I tightened the looser one higher so that way when I add tension to the others, it will just naturally be less turns that I need to do because the the lower one is now tuned at a higher tension. Okay? So I go across, like a star plus pattern. With the drum dial, you can actually go in a circle. So, but just for evenness of tension and just to make sure that I'm, kind of getting the same reading as I go, I like to do either star plus pattern. And you can see I'm just doing like a half a turn past finger tight, and that's what I love about these Mapexes is that literally just barely past finger tight, and you've got your note. So, which is pretty crazy that, the drums and the bearing edges are made so well like that you can just barely have to, you can even leave it basically at finger tight and still get a note out of it, which is cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put each one of these at even tension, right below 75, just so you can hear what the drum's going to sound like when you tune both heads to the same PSI or the same tension. And another thing too is that I've heard a lot of people, they're like, well, I tuned everything to the same tension, but none of my lugs sound the same, or my lugs don't match with tap tuning, that kind of thing. And well, yeah, that's going to happen because what you're doing is you're putting the tension, regardless of listening to it or figuring out tap tuning. You're just making sure that the tension is even all around the head, which will then create a natural fundamental for the head overall, even if some lugs don't sound exactly the same. Okay? So that's why there's multiple ways of doing it, but just that way. So what I did, same thing, bottom head, now top head. Now you can see that what I did with the dial. So I just went around, got everything 75 again. After doing the lowest, this one was really low. It was at like 55 or 60, while the other ones were almost at 70, just at finger tight. Like you can see, this one's a little bit lower. So then after I get everything to that kind of tension, obviously now, I'm gonna hit it and see what it sounds like with it in tune with itself, with both heads at the same tension. Really high, right? Too high. So I haven't stretched this at all. So then what you do, just push down, give it CPR as we call it. And I'm going to do the same thing with the rezo. Now let's give it a listen. So you see how that immediately lowered it? So that's another little trick you can do, is that even if you're, keeping the same tension around it, just, stretch out the head and it'll give you a lower sound. So this needs to be lowered a lot. But what it is because I tune this batter head up really high. So then what I do, and my method is more of cranking up high and then tuning down instead of incrementally going up. And usually what I'll do is I'll just go to where the wrinkles are, get rid of the wrinkles, and then that's it. And then just kind of keep everything else at finger tight. So I just did that as a demonstration of kind of how you can, use the drum dial to quickly get tension even around. But now I'm going to show you what I do for my general tuning method, is that I'm going to just put everything at finger tight again. And when I do finger tight, I do go across just to make sure that the tension is even on the sides instead of going, around in a circle. But, you can do lots of different tuning methods. And another one too is if you're doing tap tuning, just tap this one, then this one, then. So you're going across basically. So you're tapping like, and then. That kind of thing, okay? So now we're back at finger tight. Putting it back up here. So then when I push down, now I barely have any wrinkles just at this one point. So I'm going to get rid of those wrinkles. And just by a bit, like I said, you don't want to, push down super hard. Okay, so now that those wrinkles are gone, now what I'm going to do is, once the wrinkles are gone, see what the tension is of where those wrinkles are at, okay? Now, by just getting rid of the wrinkles, all the rest are naturally going to that PSI. So, the wrinkles now, that I just got rid of the wrinkles, are now at 74. Yep, 74. That's at 74, even though I didn't touch it. That's at 74, even though I didn't touch it. Now this one is the loose one from the last time. So I'm going to turn that up just a bit to right below. And I'll turn this up just a little bit. Okay. Then, also listening for the harmonics of it. So if you hold your finger in the middle, see how you're hearing the kind of like when you're tuning a string instrument, how you use harmonics to tune, because then you'll get the interval way closer because you're listening to that wah 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 wah, the frequency wave. And then if you get the frequency waves to match, then you know that the drum's in tune with itself. Okay? So besides just tap tuning, like, and also, I have the bottom head is muted just by sitting on the stool like this. So you can also kind of hold it up. So then I'll find the lug that I like the sound the most of, and then matching it with the 10. It's all a little bit too low for my liking. So what I'm going to do is pull this out, turn it up just by a tad. Just by a tad. And then also, as you tighten others, it will naturally kind of increase the tension of some of the others. So, yep, so this needs to be lowered lots. So, now, after you get just the basic tension, Now I'm going to stretch it, get it lower, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and lower the entire thing by about 1/8 of a turn. So like I said, I go high first, then I lower it till I get to the fundamental that's going to match, you know, within the third of the other drum. So still too high, right? So going down lower. And also you can just kind of feel with your hands and the tension once you get used to tuning, like, oh, this one's already really loose, you know, so you don't want to mess with the ones that are like almost at finger tight. You want to go more for the ones that you can feel where the tension is high. And once you lower the ones where the tension is high, then it will match more with just the finger tightness of the other drums. Okay? And what I'm trying to accomplish this time with tuning, because I had medium to high tuning with the last, is to get the drums sounding, you know, low and fat and kind of flubby. And quick sounding too, you know, so. And I'm hitting with a mallet too, so obviously it gets out a little different. And that's just with a piece of clear moon gel on it too. You know, and I'm still going to stretch this one out too and lower it a little bit. But I wanted to, you know, once the reso's in place and once the drum is in, you know, a good general range, then I can just sit at the kit and slowly, you know, lower and work on the drums as they're already mounted. And see, just me holding on to it and stretching it a little bit, lowered it to a good. So yeah, better. But anyway, back to this. So, and another good thing is just putting some moon gel on there to help with tuning. So it'll kind of get rid of any of the overtones and give you a clear picture of what each head sounds like. So when you're tuning, you want to, you know, hit the bottom head by itself while you're kind of muting the bottom, or the other head, the batter. That those intervals are really close, but this needs to be lowered just a bit. I'll lower that a bit, and see, and that's why I've held off on doing these tuning videos, because I'm very meticulous about how I go about it, and I use multiple methods, and so I know that these videos are always going to be too long, just because of, you know, the way I go about it and my descriptions of it. Yeah, see, that has some good resonance, and that's the reso head, so. Okay. We're very close. We're very close. So just kind of giving you an idea of how I go about it. So yeah, I use the traditional method of, you know, seating and pushing down and getting rid of the wrinkles. But I use not only the dial to make sure my tension is even, but that's just more of a secondary check. And I like these more than TuneBots because it's analog and a dial with a pressure needle. You don't have to worry about ambient sounds giving false frequency readings, and that kind of stuff with a TuneBot. TuneBots are cool. I've used them but I find that using an analog, PSI gauge is really accurate for getting each lug to exactly what you want, without having to worry about, you know, ambient noise or someone talking while you're trying to tune, and then the tune bot picking up that frequency and giving you different hertz and you know. So it's a cool gadget, and actually a lot of people don't know, but the engineer who made the tune bot he's a electrical engineer and a drummer, so that's why he came up with it. But I like just, you know, using my ear. In addition to that, and so I'm gonna lower this some too. But yeah, just to give you a general idea of how I go about it. So just some tricks of, you know, putting it up here, save your back, using the traditional tuning of, you know, seating. You want to do that CPR a lot as you're going, because you want to stretch all that out. And if you're using Remos, you know, the glue that they use a lot of times to join the ring to the mylar will crack and stretch quite a bit. With Evans, I hardly ever run into any of those issues. The UV1s, I don't have any cracking that happens at all. But with the Remos, you will have quite a bit of cracking. And if you're still tuning your lugs and you're hearing stretching and cracking, then you know that it hasn't been seated properly all the way or stretched all the way yet. Okay? So, just some thoughts and some examples. But the gauge really helps just to get you in a general sense. And once you get rid of the wrinkles, then what I like to do is just, and it depends on the drums. I know a lot of drums you have to crank a good, you know, 1 to 2 turns to get to, you know, the note or the fundamental you're looking for. But with these Mapexes, with the Sonic Clear bearing edge, and the way they design them, and it's got kind of a round over with a sharp back lathe cut. So the bearing edge actually starts on the outside of the shell and rolls over. And the great thing about these UVs is that, see how they're clear on the edge? So where it meets the bearing edge, it's actually clear, and then the coating starts, and the coating is not a sprayed on coating, it's the UV standing for ultraviolet. It's baked on, and it's part of the head. So they last forever. They're a little bit pricey, but they sound phenomenal. And like I said in another video, Brian is the one who turned me on to them. And I use UV2s before, and I put those on the DW frequent flyer, and it sounds great on that kit. So what I wanted to do is get one so that I have a little more resonance. And I've explained this in some comments before and stuff, but my thought is always, it's better to have and be able to take away rather than to not have it all in the first place. So I'd rather have drums that are highly resonant and sing and can, you know, go on for miles, rather than like die cast or like you know, some Pearl kits or Tama kits that have re-rings inside. Because I've had those kits too, and I've loved playing with those. The Pearl Masters Custom I had, those shells were like some of the best shells I've ever seen made. Had, you know, dual re-rings on the inside, where it was like 6-ply shell, but then another like 8-ply, you know, with the bearing edge being the re-rings on the top. But what that does is, you know, when the sound waves bounce up and down, it kind of kills the sound waves faster and just creates a deep, quick, fundamental note. And especially if you have die-cast hoops on too. So, you know, different strokes for different folks, you know, pun intended. But I think, you know, my philosophy, you can always add muffling, you can always change heads, you can put die-cast hoops on flanged hoop drums. DW makes some great, you know, true hoops and different things like that are universal and will fit on almost any drum. So you can even change these to die-cast hoops to get that kind of sound. But back to my point of, I like having drums that will sing and have a lot of resonance, that you can then muffle and tune to kind of get the sound and the feel of a shorter, deeper fundamental, rather than drums that don't have that singing ability in the first place, if that makes sense. So it just depends on kind of what you like, but with these you can always add O-rings, muffling, double ply heads, dry heads. You could put 2-ply, coated with 2-ply on the top. You can add a die cast hoop on top while leaving a flanged on the bottom, like a lot of people do with their snares. So that's just my personal preference and opinion, is that I like drums that will sing, and that you can take away that the overtones or the amount of resonance in singing, rather than having something that will always only give you a quick, deep fundamental, and that's it. Without then you could put flanged hoops on those die cast drums, but the ones with re-rings, deep in thicker shells, they're always going to give you that deep fundamental, and not have a whole lot of resonance. So just depends on what you like. A lot of the times, those deep, quick sounding drums are great for recording, but you can also accomplish the same thing with drums like this that sing a lot, just by using different muffling techniques or tuning and putting different heads on. So anyway, that's just a kind of quick example of what I do for tuning. And see, this turned into a 36-minute video without even really getting all the drums tuned, but that's just I literally did this in this video. From finger tight to just getting rid of the wrinkles, to stretching it, putting the dial around, making sure the tension is even, and then using my ear. And I still haven't gone through and done the tap tuning with this, but what I do then is I just kind of hold my thumb there, or put the piece of moon gel there, and then so see, I like the sound of that lug. So what I'll do now is I'll just go across and around, and I'll try to match all the rest of the lugs by ear and tap tuning to that lug. And see how that one's lower, so crank that up a little bit. So see, now they're matching by tap tuning. So I did those across, and now I'm going to go across to the others. This one's a little low. So you get the idea. And then last but not least, I have these. Closer. But yeah, I'm going to lower the reso some, and like I said, I'm trying to get these to sound as deep and fat as possible, which is really tricky because you still want that fundamental, you still want that note, but at the same time you're trying to make it not flub out but still get a good sound out of your drums. So and I know that the fundamentals of the 10 and the snare match, the bass drum. Okay, so and then yeah, you can see it here with the intervals, and like I said, I just got the 10 done, started working on the 12, and figured I'd make a video just kind of showing my process. But I highly recommend getting a drum dial. I do not recommend just relying on it purely, because a lot of times the recommendations are, you know, tune both heads to 75 for your racks, and tune your floors to like 72 to 74, and then your you know, lowest floor tom to like 75 to 80 sometime, you know, and I'm not in agreement with some of those tunings because they're pretty high. It just depends on the context too and what you're playing, but if you go by what they tell you to do, a lot of times your sound will be too high. And although it will match, and it will naturally just kind of be in thirds because you're tuning everything to the same tension, even though it's different dimensions. So tuning the 10 to 75 psi, tuning the 12 to 75 psi, tuning that to 74 or 75, the 14 to 74 or 75, doing the same thing. So then that way, no matter the dimensions, your tensions are still the same, but the sizes and the dimensions of the drums will give you the different fundamentals, even though your ranges are still the same with the tension on the heads. Okay, so now I need to get back to work and finish tuning this. And I know it's not in tune all the way, but it's close. And I wanted to just show you how my process, and it is very close. Bit deeper. So okay, back to work. Super long video, and I knew it was going to turn into that, so that's why I've held off on doing these tuning videos for a while, because I know that it's going to be long, and people's attention spans are really short these days. But I hope it helps, because, you know, that way you're using harmonics, you're using tap tuning, you're using the drum dial to make sure your tension's even. And when you do your harmonic testing, you know, you don't want to have any muffling on there, and you usually just hold your finger in the middle and then you'll hear the frequency waves. So hear how that's boom 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 boom. So you know that they're not in the right tuning range of the interval. So even though the dial will say that they're in the same tension, that, you know, it's still going to sound different, even though the head itself will be in tune with the bottom head, if that makes sense. Okay, so you could hear that no, these two lugs don't exactly match, but when you hit the drum itself, that it's in tune with itself for the most part. I know it's a little off, but that's kind of, you know, some people are like, well, they don't sound the same, and well, yeah, it's not going to at all times, just because of the amount of tension you put on, and usually just getting the wrinkles and then just barely getting the others past finger tight. So no, the lugs aren't going to sound all exactly the same. But that's why I go back to, after I've gotten the tension, to then using tap tuning and getting all the lugs to sound the same. Okay? So have a great day, guys. Sorry, 45-minute long video, but I knew it was going to be long, and that's why I've waited so long to do any tuning videos, because I'm very meticulous about it, and it takes quite a while, for the way I go about it. You can go and just use the drum dial alone and just trust the drum dial and just leave it at those settings. But if you want your drums really accurately in thirds, and you're looking for the most tone you can get without choking the drum out or it being too high, then I highly suggest you use all those methods of first getting rid of the wrinkles, finding the low points of tension with the dial, getting those low points back up to where the other ones are with tension, and then after you do that, CPR, keep stretching it to lower it, and then fine tune back to where you're doing tap tuning, and then you're getting a better sense of what the head sounds individually of each lug. And you can hear it's pretty close. It's pretty close. It's just the harmonic. And actually, those are pretty close too. So see how I'm using the harmonics in addition to tap tuning? So that's what I mean by harmonics plus tap tuning. Plus stretching, plus ear, plus using the dial. So that's why it takes me so long. And then, like I said, plus it absolutely destroys my back, especially because I reconfigured all this. And one thing I will say, I am so happy because I finally found one of the coolest things that Mapex makes. So for their Virgin bass drums, they make this rail floating system that attaches to these front lugs and these back lugs, and then it has two rails right here, and then you can mount your toms on top of the bass drum but keep it virgin, and everything floats on top of the drums. So nothing actually is drilled in, nothing is touching the drum to affect the resonance, and I've been able to, so it's a really cool system because then you can mount them right on top of your bass drum and close, and not have to deal with dog bone clamps or relying on cymbal stands to get your drums in place. You can get your drums in place and then just use your cymbal stands to get your cymbals exactly where you like it, rather than having to use an extra tom mounting stand or all that. But I found the last one on eBay from a private seller in the UK. I've been looking for months for this thing, just for ease of use and setup. And they have plenty that are, the 20 by 16s or even the 22 by 16s. But finding a 22 by 18 rail mount is damn near impossible. And I've been looking constantly for months. And I finally found one, and I bought it as soon as I could because there was only one left. So, it was a black chrome one. So, because my hoops are black chrome, in addition to the hardware. So, you can kind of see here this black chrome. So the black chrome is the version I got instead of just the standard, chrome version. So not only did he have the 22 by 18, but he had a black chrome one, which is super cool. So anyway, that'll be coming soon, and then that way, the toms will still free float. They'll float freely, but they'll be, you can get them exactly where you want, like you would have a rack-mounted bass drum for your toms. But everything still floats freely, and nothing actually touches the virgin bass drum. It all floats on rails, and then your toms also float, and it has ball and socket joints, so you can easily get them in any position you want, super close, and right next to you. So I'm very happy that I found that part today. So anyway, got to get back to tuning. Super long video, but have a great day, guys. And I found this china yesterday. The guy didn't know what he had, and I found it in a cymbal bag that he had at this music store. And I pulled it out. I was like, "Is this for sale? Do you know?" He's like, "Sure, I guess. I don't really know what it is, but I don't know. Yeah, sure. What do you think you'd be willing to pay for it?" And those cymbals are a couple $100. And so I had a $50 bill, and so I said, "I'll give you $50 for it," and $50 straight out the door. And he accepted that. So for $50, I got myself an original K China Boy, that just sounds great. It really sounds great. So for those times when Jay likes to get really heavy rocking and crashing quarter notes and all that, it's a good one to be able to use for that. Yeah, really loud too, and it's got a higher pitch to it, but so kind of cool. But yeah, so I got the K China Boy, and only paid $50 for it. So now I've got a China for that, so it should go into the mix cool. And I can't wait to get that mount for my toms. It's going to make everything so much easier, because while of free floating drums that have more resonance and all that, but it is quite a bit of a hassle to get everything mounted. And it's much easier to just have your toms coming straight off the bass drum. And Mapex makes that awesome design where it just connects to these and nothing actually touches any of the drums. So all your resonance is still there, you don't have to drill anything, and you still have a virgin bass drum, but you can mount your toms directly on top of the bass drum. So, alright guys, 52-minute long video, really long, I know, but hopefully people will watch it through. There's some good advice in there, I promise, and if you kind of try some of those methods, you might find that your tuning is a bit easier, or at least you save some time doing it. And having a drum dial in addition to using your ear really helps. So I'm pretty meticulous about my tuning, and that's why it takes me so long. Well, plus my back. And it just, by the end of the day, I'm just so tired and I can hardly move that I have to wait till the next day to come back and do it again. But now that I've got all of them stretched and seated and all that, now I'm just going through the fine tuning process and trying to get all the intervals in a correct place. So let me know what you think about that now, Brian, about the 10. I think the 10 sounds a lot better. It's a little flubby, but I kind of want that just because of the recording aspects. So, and then I got some clear moon gels for it too, just to kind of make it even quicker sounding. But I think it has a good little tone to it. Good little tone. So, yeah, still working with it, but I wanted to just, since I was working on the 12, kind of show my process. So, alright guys, have a great day. Happy drumming, and hopefully this helps out with some tuning. We all have our different ways of tuning, but just, through trial and error, I kind of learned what works best for me, in addition to trying to save my back. And then the quickest way of tuning with making sure the tension is even, and then using my ear to do tap tuning and make sure that everything is in the correct fundamental and in the right intervals. So that's kind of my process. Alright guys, love you, happy drumming, have a great day, and once I get all these tuned up, I'll try to do another video so everyone can hear how they sound in the intervals together. But yeah, this 10 is kind of tricky, and you know, that's why I usually use 1 up and 2 down, because you know, you have to change your whole configuration and all your cymbal stands and all that kind of stuff just to fit one more tom in there. And I'm a much bigger fan of having my ride right here, you know, with 1 up and 2 down, rather than having my ride all the way off to the right and, you know, right over one of my floor toms. So, but, you know, just personal preference for different things. So, alright guys, have a great day. Happy drumming.